What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here doing a technical analysis on ticker symbol TSLA for none other than Tesla. What do we have? On the left-hand side, as always, the daily time frame, and on the right-hand side, the 30-minute intraday time frame. First of all, on the daily, you can see that we are starting to pull back off of this significant resistance area around that 1120. If I scrunch up the chart, 1115 rather, you'll notice that it was resistant here. It was resistant here as well. It's where we're finding some sellers. We did print an inverted hammer yesterday. We talked about this setup on the main channel weekly midweek market update video. The short underneath the low of the inverted hammer, looking for the top of the gap, if not the gap to fill all the way, and that is technically underway still as of today's close. So be mindful of that more significant pullback can come, and of course we do have a large gap that's looming essentially underneath us and is going to provide very little structure if we start breaking down underneath 1054. Now, something that is worth noting is that we broke this kind of support trend line right here. You can see low, touch number 1, touch number 2, we break it, we resist on the back test, and now we're lower. So the trend has kind of softened here. It's clearly still in a bullish daily trend to the upside. Don't get me wrong. Consolidating, getting price acceptance up here, even if the gap does fill, I mean, there's no argument. That's bullish, right? No doubt about it. But in the short term, for you scalpers out there, I would certainly note that if this level, which we have closed underneath, really gets price acceptance below, the top of the gap and potentially the gap fill are certainly on the table as reasonable trades into tomorrow and potentially early next week. That number is roughly 1082. The other reason I want to talk about 1082 is because we had a little bit of a spike into the afternoon here. It was really more obvious on our broad market indexes and a couple of the other Fangman companies that we watch. You can go and watch that video if you're interested. But regardless, what a spike means is that the market cut off before we could determine whether or not these lower prices were fair, right? The buyers didn't really have a chance because of the 4 o'clock bell to step in and say, okay, we're going to buy these prices, or we're going to step aside and let the market continue to auction lower, so on and so forth. So use this level as a basic measuring stick essentially. If we're still below it come tomorrow's open, that's a pretty bearish indication, noting that the market's still probably trying to auction lower and find new buyers at a lower price. Again, that would mean that your target at the top of the gap could be in play, or if we crack into the gap, noting that there's not a whole lot of structure here, no one might be willing to buy it until we fill that gap at 1022. So that's your downside setup inside of Tesla. As long as we're underneath 1082, I would start leaning on shorts for something like that to unfold. If we recapture 1082, it's basically negating all of the sellers who are short late to the party today. And as those people potentially start covering to close their position, that's added buying pressure. I use this term very gently on the channel. You guys know that, so don't tell anyone. But that's technically a short squeeze, right? A little bit of added buying pressure. Maybe it's enough to break this kind of resistance trend line right here. And in the short term, that would be considered a little bit of a breakout. You would just look for, boom, something that does this, back up to the highs. We also know that this is a weak area, right? We had 2 back-to-back daily highs. You can see the 30-minute interactions. When you get equal touches like that, that's not the proper end of an auction. Auctions usually end on a bang, not sort of a whimper where people are just kind of like, I'm not really getting paid, I'm going to back off. Not really getting paid, I'm going to back off. That's not the proper end to how a move should, finish. So to me, if that level is retested, 1115, maybe it holds at, or excuse me, it doesn't hold, but I was trying to say it holds some weight as a breakout point, but I realized that hold could be interpreted the wrong way. I'm not saying that this level will hold as resistance. I'm saying if it's retested, we treat it as weak. It should break. There should be a proper end to the auction, especially noting that anyone short now who tried to get in early is likely using that as a stop loss area, right? So if we run that, expect kind of a firecracker effect as we move through those stops and those people close out their positions, again, adding just a little bit of upward pressure by being buyers to close out their short positions. So those are the levels, those are the numbers that I've got for you inside of Tesla today. We'll check in after Friday's close, see what's going on. Of course, the weekly watch list video will cover Tesla as well, but for now, that's what I'm watching. Use 1082 as probably the most important pivot into tomorrow's session. If we're above, start leaning either neutral or potentially long for back to the top of the range. And if we're below, maybe it's the top of the gap and gap fill into this Friday session and early next week. So that's going to wrap up the video. If you enjoyed it or learned anything new, let me know in the comment section or by giving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget our main channel is linked in the description. And all of that being said, I wish you a green trading week.